Vladimir Putin's story begins in the stark post-war landscape of Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg. The city, scarred by the brutal siege during World War II, was a place of resilience and rebuilding. Growing up in a communal apartment, Putin's early life was marked by hardship and resourcefulness. These communal apartments, or kommunalkas, were a microcosm of Soviet society, where multiple families shared cramped living spaces, fostering a sense of community and collective struggle. It was a world away from the halls of power he would one day occupy. The contrast between his modest beginnings and the opulence of the Kremlin would later underscore his political narrative. As a young man, Putin was drawn to the world of espionage. Fascinated by spy novels and tales of covert operations, he saw the KGB as a path to serve his country and gain a deeper understanding of the world. He joined the KGB, the Soviet Union's feared security agency. The KGB was not just a career, it was a crucible that would shape his character and worldview. The KGB molded Putin, instilling in him discipline, secrecy, and a cold pragmatism that would define his leadership. The rigorous training and the culture of absolute loyalty and discretion were pivotal in his development. He honed his skills in East Germany, observing the waning days of the Soviet Empire. This period was crucial as it exposed him to the complexities of international politics and the subtleties of intelligence work. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 had a profound impact on Putin. Witnessing the collapse of the Eastern Bloc firsthand, he saw the rapid disintegration of a system he had been trained to protect. It was a stark reminder of the fragility of power and the rapid pace of change. The political upheaval and the dissolution of the Soviet Union were lessons in the volatility of global affairs. These experiences would shape his worldview and his approach to governing Russia. The lessons learned from his early life in Leningrad, his time in the KGB, and the fall of the Berlin Wall would all contribute to his strategic and often unyielding approach to leadership. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 had a seismic impact on the world. It marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter for Russia and its people. For Putin, it meant returning to a Russia in turmoil. The country was grappling with economic instability, political unrest, and a society in flux. He entered the world of politics in his hometown of St. Petersburg, a city rich in history but facing its own set of challenges during the transition. He served as a trusted aide to the city's mayor, Anatoly Sobchak, a prominent figure in Russian politics who played a crucial role in shaping the city's future. Putin's ability to navigate the choppy waters of post-Soviet politics did not go unnoticed. His rise was swift, and he quickly became a key player in the political landscape. In 1996, Putin was called to Moscow, the heart of Russian political power, where new opportunities awaited him. He joined the administration of President Boris Yeltsin, a man who was charismatic but deeply flawed, struggling to maintain his grip on power amidst growing challenges. Yeltsin, a charismatic but flawed leader, was struggling to hold on to power. His administration was marked by significant turmoil and uncertainty. Russia was in the throes of economic and political chaos. The streets were filled with protests, and the economy was on the brink of collapse, with empty store shelves becoming a common sight. Putin, with his KGB background and reputation for efficiency, quickly gained Yeltsin's trust. His skills and determination made him an invaluable asset in those turbulent times. His ascent through the ranks of the Kremlin had begun. Putin's journey from St. Petersburg to the heart of Russian power was just the beginning of his remarkable political career. Putin's rise within the Yeltsin administration was nothing short of meteoric. From a relatively unknown figure, he quickly became a central player in Russian politics. He held a series of increasingly important positions, each one bringing him closer to the pinnacle of power. His ability to navigate the complex political landscape was remarkable. He headed the FSB, the successor to the KGB, where he honed his skills in intelligence and security. This role was crucial in establishing his reputation as a formidable operator. He became prime minister in 1999, a position that placed him at the heart of the government. His appointment was a clear signal of his rising influence. Putin proved to be a capable and ruthless operator, adept at both strategy and execution. His decisive actions and clear vision for Russia's future set him apart. He consolidated his power base and ruthlessly sidelined his rivals, ensuring that no one could challenge his authority. His political acumen was unmatched. Yeltsin, meanwhile, was a spent force. His health was failing and his presidency was marred by numerous scandals and controversies. Beset by scandal and ill health, his presidency was crumbling. The once powerful leader was now a shadow of his former self, struggling to maintain control. On New Year's Eve 1999, in a stunning move, Yeltsin resigned. The announcement shocked the nation and the world, marking the end of an era. He named Putin as his acting successor, a decision that would shape the future of Russia. This unexpected move was a calculated risk by Yeltsin. It was a gamble by Yeltsin, a way to protect himself and his family from potential retribution. He hoped that Putin would safeguard his legacy and provide stability. For Putin, it was an opportunity he would seize with both hands. He stepped into the role with confidence, ready to lead Russia into a new chapter of its history. Putin's first term as president was marked by a dual approach. He moved swiftly to consolidate his power. He brought the oligarchs, the powerful businessmen who had enriched themselves after the Soviet collapse, to heel. State control over the media was tightened. At the same time, Putin worked to stabilize the Russian economy. He implemented economic reforms and benefited from rising oil prices. These measures brought a degree of stability and prosperity to Russia. Putin projected an image of strength and decisiveness. He cultivated a cult of personality. This resonated with many Russians, weary of the chaos of the Yeltsin years. Putin was the strong leader they had been yearning for. Section 5. The Interlude and Return Cementing Power. Barred by the Constitution from seeking a third consecutive term, Putin stepped down as president in 2008. His hand-picked successor, Dmitry Medvedev, took over. However, Putin remained the power behind the throne. He served as prime minister, retaining significant influence. The tandem rule, as it was known, ensured continuity. Putin's return to the presidency in 2012 was met with protests. The opposition accused him of rigging the election. The protests were a sign of growing discontent with Putin's rule. Putin dismissed the protests as Western-inspired. He would use the opportunity to further tighten his grip on power. Section 6. The Authoritarian Shift, Tightening the Reins. Putin's third term as president marked a noticeable shift. His rule became increasingly authoritarian. Opposition was ruthlessly suppressed. Independent media was silenced. Laws were passed restricting freedom of speech and assembly. Putin justified these measures as necessary to combat terrorism and maintain stability. However, critics saw it as a slide toward dictatorship. Putin was determined to silence dissent. He would brook no challenge to his authority. The West watched with growing concern. Section 7. Geopolitical Gambits, Crimea, Syria, and beyond. Under Putin, Russia adopted a more assertive foreign policy. This was driven by Putin's belief that Russia had been weakened and humiliated by the West after the Soviet collapse. Putin was determined to restore Russia's status as a great power. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine. The move was condemned by the West as a violation of international law. Russia also intervened militarily in Syria in support of President Bashar al-Assad. These actions signaled Putin's willingness to use military force to achieve his objectives. Section 8. Silencing dissent, opposition under pressure. Opposition to Putin's rule was met with harsh repression. Opposition figures were harassed, intimidated, and imprisoned. One of the most prominent opposition figures was Alexei Navalny. Navalny was a charismatic lawyer and anti-corruption activist. He had emerged as a thorn in Putin's side. In 2020, Navalny was poisoned with a nerve agent. He barely survived the attack. He accused Putin of ordering the poisoning. After recovering in Germany, Navalny returned to Russia. He was immediately arrested and imprisoned on trumped-up charges. His imprisonment drew international condemnation. Section 9. The 2020 Constitutional Changes, Securing the Future. In 2020, Putin pushed through sweeping constitutional changes. The changes allowed him to reset the clock on his presidential term limits. This paved the way for him to potentially remain in power until 2036. The amendments also granted him immunity from prosecution after leaving office. The constitutional changes were widely seen as a power grab. Critics accused Putin of wanting to be president for life. The changes cemented Putin's control over the Russian political system. They were a clear indication of his determination to remain in power for the foreseeable future. Section 10. Putin's Russia today. Power and uncertainty. Today, Putin remains firmly in control of Russia. He has consolidated his power. The economy, though heavily dependent on oil and gas exports, is relatively stable. However, there are challenges. The war in Ukraine has had a devastating impact. Western sanctions have taken a toll on the Russian economy. Opposition to the war is growing, albeit suppressed. The future of Putin's Russia is uncertain. Much will depend on the outcome of the war in Ukraine. The succession question looms large. Section 11. Legacy and the Future. An unfinished chapter. Vladimir Putin's legacy is complex and contested. He is credited with restoring stability to Russia after the chaos of the 1990s. He has raised Russia's profile on the world stage. However, he has also been criticized for his authoritarianism, his human rights record, and his aggression against Ukraine. Only time will tell how Putin's rule will be ultimately judged. One thing is certain: Vladimir Putin has left an indelible mark on Russia. His impact will be felt for decades to come. The future of Russia remains unwritten. However, Putin's shadow will loom large over whatever comes next.